welcome to another great interview for the Business Connections Virtual 2023 Summit. And I am Bill Marshall, and I am joined here by Don. And we are going to talk all about film production, what it takes to put one together. It's very involved. We both have been in the movie world for a little bit, so this should be a really good discussion. Don, before we get started, though, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and a little introduction to what we're going to talk about.
Happy to, Bill. So my name is Don Maningly. I am a filmmaker and podcaster based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I'm also the VP of Outreach for Boathouse Pictures. So I've been working in film production now for close to 20 years. I started out as an independent film actor and then started to gradually move into different behind the scenes roles. I've been a casting director, a producer, and an assistant director primarily, but I've also worked as a script supervisor, and other roles on different productions. And Boathouse Pictures just celebrated its 10th anniversary as a company, which we're very excited about. Not every company can say that. And we are currently shifting from being more of a full service production company to being a strictly production and distribution company dedicated to narrative and documentary films, with some other creative content sprinkled in as well.
Awesome. So I think that the first thing that I want to kind of do is, especially with so much content out there now, with all the different streaming services and YouTube and all the different things that people can do, let's kind of give people an idea, and it's in general because there's so many things you can do, but like, what are some of the things that people can create? Like the obvious ones are movie and TV, but like, what are some things that people are putting together nowadays?
Well, I think the more important question is, what are people not putting together today?
Yeah.
Because there's so much content out there right now.
Hmm.
And you obviously hit the nail on the head by mentioning YouTube, which has been a big platform for everyone. But we've also got social media platforms now that a lot of companies and individuals are utilizing. I mean, we have social media influencers today who have
Hmm.
hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter. Well, it's X now, but it used to be Twitter
Yeah,
and Facebook and so forth. So the sky is kind of the limit for getting your content out there. But really, your goal as either an individual filmmaker or as a company needs to be figuring out your audience. Who do you want to appeal to? Is it a certain demographic? Is it a certain industry? That's what you've got to figure out first. Everything starts with an idea, there's no question about it. But you also have to figure out an audience, because if you're kind of just putting content out there for the whole world to see, it's going to get lost in the endless sea of content. And that's the last thing you want. You put a lot of hard work, many hours into filming and editing and uploading to these different platforms. So you want to reach your target audience.
absolutely. And I think that with all the different platforms at our disposal now, as a creative person who's looking to put their content out there, even the platforms have certain audiences as well. So, TikTok tends to be a younger audience, Instagram's more millennials, Facebook's even older than that. So, knowing the audience you're trying to hit, like you said, is very important, but also knowing that it applies to the platforms as well as the content you're creating. Um, and I think that, when it comes to create, like, content's such a broad word. That's why I wanted to kind of break down a few of the different places that, different kinds of content. So we have like TV shows and movies, but there's also web series, there's podcasts, like you said, there's um, episodic, like it's not even like a TV show. So like Ryan's World, where it's episodic because he's always showing different kinds of toys that he's playing with. There's my kids watch a lot of these things. So there's Preston, he does Minecraft. There's a bunch of YouTube channels. My kids know more of them, but um, Mr. Beast and all his videos. There, there's so many different versions of what people are watching, and I think that the way people are marketing that is pretty cool too. So I think that before we step into what it takes to make this product, I think one of the other things I want to do is talk about how can we distribute this product that we put together. So you talked about social medias, but what other things are available to someone who has a show or something that they put together that they want to put out there?
Well, obviously, you mentioned streaming platforms before, Bill, and I know, I mean, there's so many streaming platforms now, from Hulu to Netflix to Disney Plus to Tubi to just, I mean, countless streaming platforms at this point, and some of them are more specifically geared to people who want to reach, like I said, certain target audiences. Like you'll go on one streaming platform and maybe for people who are filmmakers, maybe you want to specialize in like horror or sci-fi films and everything, and certain platforms are more appropriate for reaching those types of target audiences. Obviously, you think of Disney Plus, you think primarily people who are into, the watching the colorful cartoon characters or
Hmm.
watching the Marvel or Star Wars projects.
Yeah.
But all of these platforms, in addition to having films, also have advertisers on them. So you could be a business, not necessarily a company that's in the film industry, but maybe your product sort of ties into some of these characters. I mean, there's a company out there I know that I researched a while back called Born Licensing, and they primarily specialize in licensing all of these different commercial characters for different advertisements.
Mm.
So it might not be an advertisement for like a new like Mickey Mouse movie or theme park attraction. It could just be they're integrating Mickey Mouse into this commercial that's going to advertise their product,
Yeah.
which I thought was a really cool business model. How can we utilize popular characters to promote different products and services? Because the thing is, at the end of the day, they made a good point where they said you're going to instantly recognize this pop culture character.
Yeah.
If you get like a famous actor to appear in your ad, sure, people are going to recognize Ryan Reynolds or Tom Cruise or whoever else. But
Mm.
if it's a character that that person is synonymous with, so let's say somebody wants to incorporate Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds' character, into a
Mm.
commercial of some kind, has nothing to do with his movie. It could just be he's promoting a new cell phone service or whatever. It's still going to reach so many more people because they're instantly familiar with that brand, that
Yeah.
character.
Absolutely. So basically, what we're saying is there's a huge amount of ways that we can get out there now in the digital world. So this is an awesome opportunity for content creators to really start getting out there and have an ability to make this a career, which wasn't really a thing like only maybe 10 years ago, that it wasn't a huge thing for people to do. So let's start putting a perspective around what it takes to create content. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'll just record this on my phone and I'll put it out there. Like the people who are doing this as a career, there's a difference to it. So let's start, with the preparation work. Like we have an idea, but what does it take to really start putting this together where we're getting ready to actually shoot something?
So that's very important. Is you could have an idea, could be the greatest idea in the world, an idea that's going to change the face of filmmaking, if you
Yeah.
will, production. But if you don't have a proper plan on how to execute it, you're going to fail right from the get-go.
Hmm.
It all starts with things like how big of a crew do we need to film this? Do we even need a crew? Do we really just do I just if I'm an individual, do I just need to set up a camera, like you said?
Hmm.
Um, Once again, who do I want to appeal to with this video? How long do I want it to be ideally? I mean, truth be told, short form content is going to get you a lot more hits on social media than long form content. Long form content, whether it's a short film or a feature film or some sort of like branding video, that's going to probably be better for other platforms besides TikTok or Instagram or one of
Hmm.
those. Short form though is going to it needs to be something that's going to hook people. So that's the thing about so back to your initial idea, something that's going to catch people's interest within like the first 20 seconds.
Hmm.
You have to, time is your friend, but it's also not your friend in many ways. And the other thing you have to not be afraid of is when you finally get ready to shoot your content, you can't be afraid to make mistakes. It's a lot of trial and error. You can't worry about getting a perfect take on the first go. It might take you 15, it might take you 25 takes before you're finally satisfied with it.
Yeah,
And then you have to start factoring in other technical aspects. Do we want to add like a filter to this video? Do we want to edit it a certain way, to include like wipes or dissolves or things like that? Is this just going to be all one long shot with no cuts at all? Are we going to layer music onto it and sound effects? All of that goes into your production, and you've got to think about it before you put it out there. And once again, your first video that you post is not going to be perfect. You're going to look at it probably afterwards and go, why did I make that decision? Why didn't I make this shot a little bit shorter? Why didn't I change up the music? Why does my hair look terrible in this shot? There's going to be a
exactly.
lot of
Critiquing.
self-critiquing you're going to do, but
Yeah,
that's okay because you'll learn from your mistakes. And this is why you also have to look at your user comments, because if you're getting a lot of views and you're getting a lot of people commenting, then that means that people are interested in seeing more from you.
absolutely. And I think that to kind of drive home the point that you were talking about too, if you go and watch TV shows like Seinfeld, The Office, ones that obviously made it for a really long run, you watch those first two episodes, they're almost completely different than the rest of the show because they were just starting to get the things together. And then even the seasons, sometimes you can see that they got more and more in the groove of what people actually liked as opposed to what it was. And that's the same concept you're talking about, but on a bigger scale than say if we're just doing 30-second videos. But the idea that you think you're going to get it right the first time is kind of a something to get out of your head. Now, so we're contemplating all these different pieces, all the different things that you talked about before we even start shooting, equipment, the lighting, the effects we're going to have afterwards, how the shot's going to be put together, who's involved. Um, Now that we kind of put all that plan together and we know exactly what we want to create, as we start putting this together and shooting it and things like that, what are some things that we need to think about? What are some things we need to know to really make it effective?
So to really make it effective, you need a couple of things. Preferably you need storyboards to work off of, so that how are you going to frame each shot. Again, what is one cut going to look like to the next one? Which again you might change it later on, but you have to have a little bit of an idea of what one shot is going to look like versus the next one. Some people like to call it a shot list sometimes. So like after you've actually drawn everything out and even if it's just stick figures, just kind of getting an idea of how it's going to look on camera. Then you've got to or come up with a little bit of a schedule to how you're going to film these shots, because the chances are you're probably going to film things out of order, and then put them in the proper order when you get to post-production, to editing. But that really forms the foundation of your game plan for filming. Any project that I have worked on where we have not had a shot list or storyboards of some kind has been borderline disastrous in the grand scheme of things, and we kind of had to scramble at the last minute to figure out what order to shoot everything in. And that's the thing, when you're working with a bigger crew, that can work in your favor or against you, because there is such a thing as having too many hands on set as well, because people sometimes get a little confused about, well, what's my role here? What am I really doing? But then there are also instances where you could benefit from having an additional pair of hands on set. So those are a lot of factors to keep in mind, like how big of a crew do I need to execute this? You don't have to do it all by yourself. I mean, if you can, more power to you, but you are not under any obligation to do everything strictly by yourself, whether it's shoot, edit, all and the rest of your post-production, upload. Factor all of this in when you're thinking about the production.
Absolutely, and I think that is a common misconception that people have when they think about YouTubers and people who are maybe doing it on a smaller scale than like huge productions. They still have people helping them, whether it's someone editing graphics or putting together smaller pieces like that, or even on set, like they might have the one camera and you don't see anybody else, but there's somebody else there, if nothing else, holding cue cards if they don't have a teleprompter, which is unlikely nowadays with all the apps. But even like on a smaller scale like that, they have someone there helping them because they can't do it themselves. Um, and if you're lucky enough to come up with a very simple idea and you're shooting it each day and you're able to kind of do most of it yourself, it's still good to have that extra person there because they're going to catch things like that doesn't look like the last shot continuity, or they're going to catch things that maybe you said you wanted to do, but you forgot about it, but they remembered. So it's still always good to have at least one other person there and involved to really help you put together these kind of productions because small scale or not, like you said, you got to figure out how much help you need and don't be afraid of it because it can get stressful because it becomes a job. A lot of these YouTubers, when they started, it was maybe one, two people, and they were putting it together, and you can tell because it's not the same quality it was later. But they have big groups of people that are working with them because it's a business. They can't do it themselves. So we're on set, we're shooting the video, we have our crew together, we're getting things done. As we start to finish the shoot, whether it's just a 1 day shoot or it's a movie where there's a couple days, as we start finishing things up, what are some things we need to keep in mind to make sure that we didn't miss anything, that we had everything organized, that we got everything shot? What are some pieces we got to put together?
Well, my first piece of advice there is never be on a set, be going through filming and just simply say, "Oh, we didn't get this shot," or "Oh, that looks a little off. We'll fix it in post."
Uh,
No, no, that is the worst mistake that you could make. It is
very
not
dangerous.
only does it put more pressure on you and the entire production, but whoever is going to be doing the editing is going to be very upset with you
Yeah.
because if they realize they don't have enough footage to work off of, you're then going to be forced to go back to your location wherever it is and try to recapture the footage, which is probably going to cost you more time and money. So my suggestion is always, even if you think you've done enough takes or you've gotten something from enough camera angles, it doesn't hurt to do one extra take or one extra camera angle just in case you need it. Because or again, maybe you think that excuse me, whatever your dialogue was, it worked perfectly on screen. We don't need to change that line up at all. Do another variation just for the purpose of having options. It can never hurt. I will tell you that.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's always hard to go back or to create a couple seconds, even a minute of footage that you need in order for the time frame to work out. So, all right. So now we're in the post production, as we call it, but the aftermath where we finish shooting, we got to start editing, putting all the things together. What does that look like?
It's well, it could either be the time in your production where everything comes together and and you're just seeing the end result of all the hard work you put together, or you realize in editing, wow, we didn't plan any of this out at all, and now it's been cut together and doesn't make a whole lot of coherent sense. So then at that point, you're essentially, what's the old saying? You're breaking more than a few eggs to make an omelet. Like
Mhm.
it really should just be as simple as, all right, one, two, three, here we go. Let's mix together the ingredients and voila, there's your completed omelet. Where now we're realizing, wait a second, these eggs are out of date, or I mixed in the wrong ingredient. Whatever
Yeah.
the case may be, it's a weird analogy, but you kind of get what I'm saying. Is that editing is really where your film or your project, whatever it is, comes together, and you want to set yourself and the whole production up for success. So you've got to be there every step of the way, and you've got to be open to new suggestions. The editor might be looking at the footage and say, well, I know you guys kind of wanted to do things in this order, or I know that this was, you wanted to kind of do a fade in here, it could be a simple transition or something like that. Or I know you wanted to put music here. What if you guys tried doing this instead? Um, so it's not so much that you have to compromise your vision, but you do have to be open to new suggestions and looking at it from a different perspective. Once again, especially when you're thinking about your bottom dollar and your target audience at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I think that one other piece that comes in too is if you've been shooting this from the very beginning and planning it from the very beginning, each step puts it into a different perspective for you because you didn't see anything when you first started. So you're writing it and doing it entirely in your brain. Now you started seeing the shots that you're putting together and started putting it together in a different way. But now when you're at the end, you're starting to see it actually get put together in order and are able to start seeing like, oh, well, that angle right there really doesn't make any sense now that I'm seeing it next to this angle. So, like you said, being open-minded and understanding that, there's a whole nother perspective to it. And I think that editors think a lot differently than other people with when they see things and how to kind of mix the shots together. Because sometimes it's simple. It was just one scene and there's a few angles to that scene. Other times it's more of, well, this scene's jumping to this scene and this is going over here and the CGI is coming in and this is all blue and how am I supposed to imagine it all together? Depending on what you did. Because I mean, now with technology, you can do green screens, blue screens with like not big sets and stuff. So, it's interesting how editors, I think, put all that together. And like you said, I think having that open mind is one thing that's really going to help the creator, even if it's just two people, figure out exactly how to put it together. So now that we've finished putting this together, we have our finished product. To kind of bring it full circle back to the beginning, we were talking about some of the distribution, some of the things that we would be able to put it out on. Put into perspective what it takes to get that product out from the simplest, which is just putting it on social media, to the more complicated of getting it bought by a streaming service.
So distribution is not easy. There's no securing distribution, I should say, is not easy unless you have some means to self-distribute. Like you said, Bill, I mean, anyone can put up their content on YouTube or Vimeo or one of the social media channels. There's pretty much, as long as you meet that social media channels, rules and regulations, you can self-distribute yourself. But at the end of the day, a lot of filmmakers, they're interested in making a profit on the back end. They've spent all this money, they've used up all of these resources. They want to get something back for it at the end of the day, and they want to sell their movie. Now, determining how you want to do that, there are a lot of different options. Many streaming platforms right now are offering opportunities for filmmakers. Some are up and coming, more independent, more geared towards independent content. But then you have the larger studios like Hulu and Netflix and so forth. And obviously, getting their attention is no easy task. This is where you need to focus on making other connections and doing a lot of networking within the industry. Whether you can get your product in the hand of some sort of like a film distribution specialist or agent who could maybe help broker a deal between you and your production company and one of the streaming platforms, or whether you want to try to generate interest by entering your film into film festivals. This is obviously another way to catch people's eye and say, "Wow, this company puts out some really good films, and we should consider buying the rights to this." But there are just so many different factors that you have to consider. I mean, at the end of the day, I would almost try to suggest that people come up with a few different approaches when it comes to distribution. Like at the bare minimum, well, we want to get this out there and we want people to be able to watch it. We might not be able to make much off of it, but if people like it, then maybe future projects we could potentially make a profit on.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many ways to put it out there, like we were talking about before. So determining all that stuff in the very beginning, like we talked about, what the plan is, even the marketing plan afterwards is part of what we have to figure out in the beginning so that we can know what we're doing with it. So we know what the product timeline for return on investment is and all those different sides as well. Because on social media and YouTube and things like that, you can make money, but you got to build an audience. It's a whole different model. So it's a matter of figuring out what you're doing and how you're going to put it out there. So thank you so much, Don. I think we really, brushed the surface, but I think we gave people a good idea of what it takes to really put together content. It's not as simple as people think. It's more time consuming than people think. And to really put something together that we're going to be proud of is something that needs to be invested in, whether it's time, money, or effort. So, Don, please tell us how people could get a hold of you if they want to ask you more. And what's the best way to contact you?
Well, I am on all major social media platforms, so you can find me under my name, Don Maningly, on Facebook. I'm also listed as Donnie Cage 223 on Instagram. I do have an account on Twitter/X, although I don't utilize it that much. But I am very active on LinkedIn as well under my real name, Don Maningly. And of course, if you ever want to just reach out to me directly, you can email me at dmaningly@bhpictures.com.
Awesome. So thank you everybody for watching another great interview for the 2023 Business Connection Virtual Summit. Again, I'm Bill Marshall. I was joined by Don, and we will see you all in the networking event tonight. Bye.